Hello and welcome to Modules with Sound. All right, so we're going to talk about what modules are and some different strategies for working with them. So let's recap some stuff. First thing to recap, module syntaxes. We have two. CommonJS and ECMAScript modules. Both of them do the exact same thing. They do it in slightly different ways under the hood. And they have very different histories. CommonJS, back way before JavaScript had modules, this was a library that someone wrote for the burgeoning Node.js platform. It was determined to be beneficial for Node to have modules, even though JavaScript itself did not. It's where we got NPM. All that was based on the idea of modules. There's basically nothing you can do in Node that doesn't rely on modules. JavaScript didn't have them available, so somebody made the CommonJS module system. CommonJS is easily identifiable by its use of the require function. And most of the time you're doing something like const some module equals require either same rules as ECMAScript, where if it's a dot, it's looking for a file that you wrote. If it doesn't start with a dot or a dot dot, it's looking for an NPM module. If the thing that is being exported out of some module is an object, you can destructure things out of it. But otherwise, that's it. We want to get something out of a module. We use module.exports. And whatever we want to export. So something like that. They can be functions, they can be objects. Like JavaScript doesn't care. That's CommonJS. To this very day, CommonJS is the module system for Node. So if something is being done in Node, easiest way to live your life is just to use CommonJS. I would say this is probably the most active area of development in the Node world right now, is figuring out how the living hell we get ECMAScript modules to work in Node. You can do it behind a bunch of feature flags and a bunch of gymnastics and stuff right now, which is why CommonJS is still the easy path to getting modules working. Things that are Node, Jest. Jest is Node. Angular. The thing that builds Angular, all that stuff is Node. So even though but I'm not a Node developer. I got bad news for you. Everybody these days is a Node developer. So that's why it was difficult to get testing working with your stuff. CommonJS was so successful that triggered the people behind JavaScript, which is a group called TC39, or Technical Committee 39, to make a module system that was actually part of the language. So that became ESM. So this is part of JS, not part of browser JavaScript, not part of Node, actually part of the language itself. And its goal was to totally replace CommonJS. It has been marginally successful at that. You can recognize an ECMAScript module because it uses import and export syntax. Import some module from some module. And then this thing is going to be like export const some module equals whatever. They do the same thing though. In a module, scope doesn't leak out. Two modules don't share variables. They only communicate with each other through importing and exporting. That gives us a lot of isolation. Also gives us a lot of reusability. We can have something like Lodash and import it into any file that needs it. That's the general idea behind modules. Questions so far about CommonJS and ESM?
So you said, like, when we were doing the testing yesterday, it should have been with CommonJS.
Yeah.
Node. When we tried to import and export using that syntax, it was throwing errors left and right until we actually did it with ES syntax.
Really? Oh, well, we'll play with it a little bit. Other questions about ESM versus CJS? Cool. 4 strategies for modules. 2 of them for Node. 2 of them for browsers. For Node, easiest one is CommonJS. If I'm just writing some JavaScript code, fuck it. Just use CommonJS. It's easier. Your next best option is called ESM. ESM is a Node package and so what we want to do with it is install it and then use that in our like Node commands. So I'll give you an example. All right, so this has a, let's go to a different project. ESM practice 2. All right, so nothing up this sleeve, nothing up this sleeve. I make an NPM project. I make an index.js file. I install Lodash. npm I Lodash. Go into this index.js file. I use CommonJS syntax. Or I'll do snake case. And then All right, so there's my Node app written in CommonJS. So if I node index.js that, I get a snake case hello world. If I want to convert this to ESM, it's import snake case from Lodash. Okay, and if I try to run that, womp womp, can't use import statement out of module. We've seen like this kind of stuff before. So how ESM works is if I install the ESM package, then I can do node, instead of just doing it right there, add this resm. Works. So pure node environment, I really am committed to using ESM. That's probably the easiest way to do it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You said with ESM, the curly braces is not destructuring, it's something else, but I can't remember what that something else was.
All right, excellent. So in CommonJS, when I use these curlies on this, that's destructuring an object. So this exports an object that destructures something out of it. ESM uses almost the exact same syntax. Looks like it. That is not destructuring. And like, not today, not tomorrow, that's going to fuck you one of these days. So this is a named import. Here's the difference. If I do modules, let's see, some module.js, and I do something like export const some object, some key, some value. And I want to use that over here. Or actually, I'll do it this way. Let's put the default. Okay, so if I take the default export of this, which is an object, and try to destructure out some key, that doesn't work. Cannot import something and destructure it at the same time. I could totally do that with CommonJS. This is a different syntax. What that means is it's looking for an export with the name some key. So that would be like export const some key equals whatever. That's what that is. Pull a named export, pull a default export. That's a default export. I only get one of them per file. Doesn't have curlies. It's going to look for whatever your default export is. Just put the word export. It's going to be looking for, like, that is a named export. This is a named, that's a named import. Almost like destructuring, but just different enough to ruin your day. More questions about that?
I had one quick question. You said you're only allowed one default?
Yep.
Okay.
So yeah, if you don't specify what the import should be, like this, then it's whatever your default one is. Now, a quick note, These don't have to match, like they don't here. This one's called some object. This one's called some default export. That's totally legit. They don't have to be called the same thing.
Does it just throw an error if you try and add a second one?
I might need to. Is that allowed? No. All right, let's see what happens if I try that. Yeah, I didn't like something.
Oh, holy shit.
That's the stack trace on that. There we go. Cannot find module, some module. Oh. Was not actually the same issue. All right, let's try that again. Duplicate export of default. Just a sec. Other questions so far? Cool. That's Node. So our other two strategies are for the browser. We're going to talk about parcel for both of them. But we'll do like parcel for development, parcel for building. All right, so parcel for development. I just learned this today. This is kind of neat. So if I go back over to the Pokédex thing from earlier. Okay, so I installed parcel and I used this script. That's like, that probably would have saved some heartache yesterday. This is called a glob. This is going to match any file that's in the source directory and ends in .html. That's the magic trick. One other thing that you could do with that is if we look at the parcel docs, we can't have that, that module key, but what we can have is a source key like that. And then we can just use parcel and parcel build and stuff. So like this one right now, I can npm start and it'll run that parcel script. I can also add a source key here and say that. And I'll bet that works the same. Let's see. Oh, it needs a specific file. Hold on, let me try putting it in a glob and see if that makes a difference. Ah, bummer. It wants a single file for that. All right, never mind. Thought it'd be cool. That has to be in quotes. That's like probably the thing you're most likely to mess up. If it's if you have like a folder hierarchy, I'll bet that doesn't work either. You can do that though. That's the glob syntax for, and also look in any folders that I have for HTML files also. Magic. So when we do that, Parcel is one of the most magical pieces of technology I've seen in a while. So Parcel will handle TypeScript. It'll also handle SCSS. It has like all kinds of stuff that normally is like quite difficult to build out and configure together. And in a development environment, we kind of want it like that. So this is Parcel. Wherever our files are, .html. Or */*star.html. So we do that. That should let us use modules over here. So if I go over to the source directory and make like a utilities.ts file. Then over here, maybe I want that title case function. I'm going to rip that out of this file. I'm going to put it over here. And then I'm going to import title case from utilities. I'm going to make that a named export. Since this is TypeScript, hey, it implicitly has an any type. Not anymore, sucker. So now I'm like doing TypeScript. And if I npm start, oops, something doesn't like. Browser scripts cannot have imports or exports. Oh no! I know a bunch of you had this problem today too. Anybody remember what the solution was?
Is it type equal module?
Type equal module. So if it doesn't have the import or export word anywhere in it, it assumes that you mean it for a browser. That also, as some of you found out yesterday, means that it assumes that like it's all the variables are just in one namespace. Even if you have to split up into a bunch of different files, like TypeScript doesn't know that. It thinks that you might be trying to use those all at the same time, which means like if you just do those as regular script includes for your HTML, then all of those variables and functions and stuff are in the same, like, we call it a namespace together. If we want them to isolate, we got to add type module to the script tag. So I do that. Try serving it up again. Done. What is that? 35499. $35499. Title casing worked. Sick. Questions about that? So a couple of gotchas. So we want no module key and package JSON. We want to specify all HTML files with star. We need to use type module in the HTML. Otherwise, kind of good to go. Building an app with Parcel is similar. The problem is your browser doesn't understand TypeScript. Browser doesn't understand importing and exporting. Yeah, it kind of does now, but we're still not 100% of the way there with import-export in browsers. So we need to build it. Easiest way to do that, make a build script. Yep. It's going to look a lot like our start script. Like that. Otherwise, it kind of works the same way. So when we do something like npm run build, it goes jump, 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 jump. Turns all of your cool modules, your npm modules, even like Lodash and stuff. Notice there's no Lodash file here. It all just got baked into this JavaScript file. Our styles, our HTML. These like random characters, these are called fingerprints. They are for a thing called cache busting. If I run it again, I bet I get different fingerprints. Yep. Nope. Oh, I'll bet it did it based on the contents. Here, I'll change like some of the JavaScript. Come on. If I put something in there and run the build again. There we go. CSS has the same fingerprint. JavaScript has a different fingerprint. It's a way to like let browsers know when they're getting these files that like, oh, don't use a cached version if you have it. Use my like fingerprinted one instead.
Couple questions about that.
Yeah.
So like, we kept doing the build and there was just at one point like 20 or 30 different fingerprints for all the different pages and stuff in there. Do we have to get rid of them, or do you just generally leave them in there?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it did keep those. I'm surprised it doesn't clear those out. So, couple things. One, you want to git ignore this stuff. So if I look at our git ignore right now. Yeah, so we're ignoring that dist folder. This isn't part of the repo. These are called build artifacts. You don't put build artifacts in your repo, generally speaking. And this also relates to like why we're kind of aging out of GitHub pages a little bit. Because for GitHub pages, the files need to like already be there. Yeah, it doesn't really work so much if like we're trying to not store our build artifacts. But if you look at how we did the Netlify, here, I'll pull that up. One of the things that we, not Netflix, come on. Fly, come on, man. End of the day for everybody. So I head over here. And take a look at how I told it to work I don't save the dist folder. So when Netlify gets it, it doesn't have one. I told it, whenever you get this, run this command. The files that you want are in this directory. So from Netlify's standpoint, they only get generated once. I think it's a little whack that they don't clear them out for you, but I'll bet there's a version of the command that does that. Like, let's see, npx parcel help. Cool, so then there's this build command and it says there's options for it. And it says run parcel help and then the command for more information. So we go npx parcel help build. No content hash is like, I don't want you to fingerprint it. All right, I'll bet that no cache thing does it. So if I just do npx parcel build no cache, and then source whatever.html. Let's see what that does. All right, so I got 3 new files. Did it get rid of my other ones? Nope. But what should help, there's only one HTML file in here. Oops. And it's built to include these fingerprinted versions. Every time you build, it should be like pulling those out so that even though there's a bunch of files in there, it's only ever like using the most current ones. I understand it's not always the case, but it's also, and this is the case with any build artifact, you can always delete a build artifact and just regenerate it. That's the whole point, is that they can be generated. So then it made me another one that only has HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Another way you
But
can
if
do
we
this,
use,
hang on, one more. We can say, make that part of the build script, rmrf dist and. So by keeping them in there, maybe that gives you some auditability. But now I can do npm run build, and it blows out that directory first. That'd be a way to do that.
cool. And then like, but I feel like Netlify is going to make this a lot easier than what
I
we were
think so
trying to
too.
do.
And yeah, the way we do this with Angular is actually the exact same. It's even the same command. When you push up an Angular app, you do npm run build, and it does the same thing. It generates all of your build artifacts for that. It's different than what you're using on when you're running it locally, but it gives you that one HTML, one CSS, one JavaScript file that you need. Also, I don't know if you put this together yet. When we use Code Sandbox, and I create a vanilla sandbox, you ever notice how we can use TypeScript and whatever else we want in here? It's because Parcel's installed. We use the same configuration as Parcel. That's why we can use import-export also. Other questions about any of this?
I know this is getting a little bit long, but is there any way you can show an example of like doing a test as well?
I was waiting for somebody to ask. Yeah, let's walk through the testing thing. So what I was hoping for yesterday, I'll show you, was, all right, so I have this utilities TS file. Oops, stop it. There's nothing in this utilities TS file that has anything to do with the DOM. There's no document, there's no window, there's no fetch. There's no local storage. All of those are like the DOM. If we're using those at all, our tests get a lot more complicated very quickly. But a lot of the time, we can extract things that are using the DOM from things that are not using the DOM. And frankly, that's just a good idea in general. So for example, the process of making this string can be done separately from like actually adding the HTML to the page. So like we could have a function that takes in Pokemon to card HTML, and takes in a Pokemon and then returns all of that. Cool. Now that's just pure JavaScript. There's like, even though I'm returning a DOM, like an HTML string, it's just a string. So then that can be like, something like Pokemon to card HTML Pokemon. Now I've taken out the DOM things and split them out from the things that are just text manipulation. And then that becomes separately testable. Now, something a lot of you were running into yesterday, like Jest isn't nearly as smart as you might think it is. If I try to import this from the like index.js, it tries to read the entire file. And it starts freaking out about like, I don't know what a document is. Why are you making me do this? So this stuff kind of needs to be in a separate file. So I can say I want to do that and Pokemon to card HTML. All right, so I've got these very non-DOM-y things over here. And it goes, hey bud, Pokemon you say, what's the type for that? Well, it's got a name and it's got an image URL. All right, so TypeScript's happy. Let's see if we can get Jest happy with this. If I make utilities.test.ts, can I import, that'll be the same thing we were doing over here. Can I import that stuff and describe title case, and by the way, since you're all budding test nerds now, this is called a degenerate case. When you're testing that, like, it basically does nothing if you tell it to do nothing. It's called a degenerate case. That's a really good first test. So I expect title case nothing to be that. All right, so TypeScript is freaking out, in part because I haven't actually like set up the TypeScript stuff. Parcel is 0 config, so it makes some smart guesses at stuff, but like Parcel doesn't have anything to do with this test file, and so I still need to like generate a TS config. So if I do that, and install TypeScript, I can npx tsc init. Cool. Let's see if that calmed this thing down. It's still mad. It's not mad anymore. You'll love to see it. Oop, never mind. There it is. It's mad again. So now it's saying, hey, bro, Jest has types. And those types will let it know, too, that like describe init and stuff are actually in the environment. So I can npm install types Jest. All right. How you like me now? All right, seems to be happy so far. So let's see if it'll run the test in ESM. I cannot use import statement outside of a module. All right, so it's telling me all these things here. Oh, shoot. Also, I need to do tsgest. Because I'm writing the test in TypeScript. So let's forget the syntax for this. Okay, tsgest. Then there's like an init command. Yeah, npx tsgest config init. There we go. And then I should be able to just run my tests like normal. Let's see if that let me use ESM. I don't think it will, but maybe. Oh, there you go. That also took care of the ESM thing. Magic. The other thing that you could probably do with that, I'll bet Parcel will work with ESM and CJS. So what you could probably get away with in your utilities, oops, come on. Is instead of trying to do these like that, do them like, man, this might only work with default exports. We'll see. So we do like a module.exports equals title case and Pokemon to card HTML. All right, I'm curious if that'll still work. Nope, wouldn't read it. So yeah, really wants those to be ESM. But yeah, using tsgest apparently papers over that, so there you go. Other questions about any of this?
I have a question, because this was happening to us yesterday. Why did it run twice?
Why did what run twice?
I think, didn't it run 2 tests?
Yeah, because there's also this one here.
Oh, okay. All right. I forgot about that one. Okay.
And so now that my test runner is doing what I want it to do. Oops. And write out the rest of these tests. A single word. Something like that. Do she work? Suppose I should falsify that test first. Beautiful. And so on. More questions about jamming all this stuff together. And again, like building these kinds of, they're called tool chains, is very difficult. I probably know 3 people in my professional life who are any good at like building these by hand. It's not a thing that most devs are very good at. You get a lot of this stuff out of the box with Angular and Create React App and like lots of those kinds of things. Building your own is a pretty advanced skill. I wouldn't lose too much sleep over not being able to do it. Like, for example, 6 seconds to run that test? Are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's slow as hell. Like, that should have been in the neighborhood of, like, 2 or 3 milliseconds. And it's because of parcel and TS-Jest, and so there's other ways you can handle that that'll speed that up. That's the part that, like, not very many people are actually very good at that. All right, quick check on sound. All right, my microphone was working this entire time, looks like at least. So next time you run into module woes, hopefully we've got something useful for you to use. All right, go make good use of your last half hour before stand down. Cheers.